So, all right, everyone, we just finished watching Mandalorian Chapter 12, which I was really blonde on earlier today. That's fine. Cody knows what I'm talking about. But it was absolutely phenomenal, I think. I'm slightly disappointed that I was wrong about the ending scene. However, I'll move past it because it was a great episode, regardless. The short recap that we have is Baby Yoda's absolutely adorable. Mando's struggling at being a dad. Cara Dune is still a badass, but now she's a good girl badass instead of just a punk. Um, Very cool what they've done to Navarro. Lots of progress there, and basically Grief Karga, Cara Dune, the Mithril, and Mando team up to have a really cool, very insightful thing where we learn a little bit more about the cloning process and why this adorable little guy was wanted by Moff Gideon. And of course, Mando actually learns that Moff Gideon is still alive, and there's some bad news coming because a tracker is placed on the Razor Crest, and that's pretty much where we end the season, we end the episode, and we're heading off towards Ahsoka as anticipated for Filoni to take the reins on that episode, as many people have been suggesting for about a week now, at least. So, with that, we're just going to go ahead and break down all of our different things. We have with us, me, myself, of Star Wars Doctrine, Logan. We have Cody, who's also the other side of Star Wars Doctrine. We got our girl Mallory down here of Analyzing Star Wars, and we have our buddy Ronan up here. He does also his own little YouTube channel about Star Wars and a little Mando After Effects, and I'll be actually in his YouTube video that he's going to do later on too. So make sure to check his out on his page. We'll link it in our description and stuff to go ahead and check it out. So, everyone's reactions, fantastic, loved it. Lots of nodding.
Please, you guys go
Yeah.
first.
Okay, I'll start. I think one thing that I really liked about this episode is that it went above our expectations. I can already feel that everyone's going to say, oh, it's just another filler episode. We just want to get to the good stuff. But
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is, this is not even close to a filler episode. Is this episode covers the basis of a normal story progression episode,
Mm-hmm.
where for me, like a filler episode would be like the droid arc in the Clone Wars. That to me is what I would consider a filler episode. But this episode, where it took steps that needed to be taken to progress the story. Like there's nothing in this episode that's going to prevent the story from being withheld or a waste of 40 minutes. It's everything that we needed in this episode was vital to the storyline.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
It was cool to see that storyline kind of come back to Navarro too, and maybe kind of give some insight as to why they were on Navarro in the first place and why that was an important planet and everything like that. I think, but along with what Mal said, I think I even said when we were watching it at one point, I said, "Oh, great, just another quest." And Logan's like, "I'm already on a quest, you know." And so, but like you said, it didn't turn out to be just a side quest. It was actually very important. And if Mando hadn't come there, he probably wouldn't have found out, you know, what they found out about why they were looking for the child and everything. And so I think that was a really cool way to implement that.
For sure.
This episode was, I agree with Mallory. It was far from me calling it filler. I understand where people would come from of it, but you gotta and praise again to this show where it comes to context and details. We go to another side of Navarro that we haven't been to before, and it's an Imperial section.
Yeah.
And it gave me some Hellboy vibes from the opening, where it's like, okay, the Imperials or the Nazis are working on some creepy black magic stuff. We don't know what it is, and we got to put an end to it. So this links to why Moff Gideon has been persistent with Baby Yoda or the child or young, whatever may have you. And Carl Weathers directed this, and it's just like, what?
Yeah.
Apollo Creed.
Yeah.
I'm not used. I don't know if he's directed before. If this is his first time, TKO, TKO in my opinion.
For sure. And I don't think we're gonna hit. I don't think we'll see the word filler episode tossed around at all, because actually,
Hope not.
well, I just think in general, like, I think we all totally understand why episode two got called that. Makes sense. But this one, like, we're just looking at, this is really the main storyline of it all, actually, right here. This is
Yeah.
what it's all about: is Moff Gideon and why the Empire wants this guy.
Yeah.
That's what the show's really about at the end of the day. And I thought it was so cool because this was, to me, when, like, they're doing the recap, you're like, oh my gosh, this one's totally going to be all about season one, which to me I haven't felt like we've actually continued the storyline of season one at all. Like, I mean,
Right.
yeah, we've been, oh, well, we need to take this to the Jedi, which is literally just like one sentence in all of season one. So now we're actually getting to all the other things we went through with season one, why he was being targeted so much, why the Empire was after him for so much. And obviously, the cloning guy, it was very interesting to see our nameless scientist back and be like actually understanding what the hell's actually going on and kind of being like, haha, we're probably right, which was cool to see that kind of guesses on what that was all about. Which brings me to one of the things I thought was super cool was the scientist guy and the creepy looking dudes in a tank, whatever the hell that stuff was about.
Yeah.
That was interesting. A
It was
lot of
interesting, right? Did anyone else
yeah,
go back and just like stare and try and figure out what it was? Did anyone else do that? Because I was
Yeah.
like, I'm just paused, like staring at my TV, like, what the hell?
It links. That's what's cool about this stuff. That even though we may know what might happen, it links to. I reached to one of my comics. I put it back. There was a comic that came out called Shattered Empire, and it
Right.
was the days after the Battle of Endor. The rebellion's cleaning up, and then spoilers for those who haven't read it. At the end, we realize that the Emperor had more plans. They've had a backup plan,
Hmm.
and this is the backup plan that I've been hoping for us to see in live action, whether it be in the movies or in the TV shows. Rise of Skywalker is another scenario which I won't get into, but this is stuff was like, yes, this is the creepy stuff that we haven't seen from the Imperial side that oh we got.
For sure.
yeah, that's cool. I think well, my first thought, because there's the popular theory that maybe they needed Baby Yoda for cloning purposes, and maybe that connects in with Palpatine and him trying to create bodies for him to be in, like Snoke or whatever clones, things like that he's trying to create. Did you get that vibe when looking at it? Do you feel like that's what this purpose was? Because the first thing I thought was that, and I even thought looking at one of them that it kind of had a Palpatine kind of look, but that was on first glance, could be totally off. What do you guys think the kind of purpose of all that is?
Now,
I do
So
think. Oh, go ahead, Mallory. Go ahead.
I'm gonna go a little bit of a different direction. Is where you guys are looking at what's in the tanks. I'm gonna go with the very end of the episode is about hollows with all the bodies or like the suits. I'm gonna go there, and we kind of discussed it. It kind of has those purge trooper kind of vibes to the suits, and I think that's kind of the direction that we're going in. Is we're trying to create these elite soldiers, whether they have the advantage of the force, whether they're not. I don't think they're going to be inquisitors. I think they're going to go more towards a trooper that has the force that can
hmm.
use that to their advantage. But I think that's kind of the direction that they're going to take it in because
The
clearly, I mean, they're not going to go if they don't have a Sith to lead them or a dark side force user to lead those. Then there's no really essence to bringing an Inquisitor because I mean they're not necessarily hunting the Jedi anymore. There's
Hmm.
no empire to really build that off of. So really, they're just trying to create these elite soldiers with the um, benefit
that
of the Force,
armor.
and that's what the midi chlorians are for.
Cool.
I thought that okay, maybe not Palpatine that they're trying to get the blood samples from the volunteer. I actually thought it was a little bit of Moff Gideon that he has that wall that freaked me the hell out. I'm like, what is that? Are those death troopers that they're trying to upgrade? What is this? And then just Giancarlo Esposito just turning around with his cape, just being like, oh yeah, I got things up my sleeve. I thought it was Moff Gideon that's trying to get stuff for him and make him a super being again. It's very wacky, crazy EU stuff that I loved about it. But I thought it might not have just been Palpatine because that's what worries me a little bit about it is that they might be trying to link it too much to the sequels or the map that Palpatine has been setting up that he's still alive and cloning himself. I'm like, do that, but with other officials. Again, it's a scattered Imperial, cell that's trying to stay alive, and they're throwing whatever it can to experiment and take control of the galaxy again.
I love both of those like thoughts. Actually, all three of y'all's, and that's actually what I would connect it to. Is like what Ronan's pointing out is like we have like the Empire is tiny, and they know that obviously. And even we get from Palpatine's contingency plan in Battlefront that part of the plan of the Empire is actually to hurt the Empire, so it gives the remnants, a stronger thing to cling to, right? It's all about building up and making that small part of the Empire actually incredibly strong. So that'd be a good connection if I don't think it's gonna exclude Palpatine because I do think we're gonna get some sort of more of an answer to that. And I thought it was really cool that in the little recording you hear him saying a volunteer. The volunteer media, I'm thinking Ray's dad, the clone that's problematic. I'm thinking Ray's
Yeah.
dad, but it could be anyone else, honestly. But I love that he called it an M count. I thought that was interesting. He didn't actually use the word midi-chlorian,
Yeah.
but he called it an M count. But I'm
Yeah.
thinking, you get like we're gonna have to probably have some connection to. I mean, if you're looking at clones, and we're thinking, of course, Sidious and Snoke and the creation of that makes
Right.
sense. But the concept of being able to, okay, we're not just making Palpatine, back alive, but he's gonna want some super soldiers, like very Legends lore, where we're gonna get stuff like that. Mallory pointing out we got Purge troopers. I mean, it all kind of fits together because you have that terrifying wall that it doesn't quite look right. It's not Death Troopers. It's not quite Purge Troopers. And
Yeah.
Moff Gideon, like this entire, the little bit you see of him, every time you're like, oh, he's so cool. Oh, he's just criminal and you have no idea what's going on. And he's such a fantastically evil character that
Yeah.
just works, I think.
Yeah, and it's what's the right term? I think that him being so persistent about this, it's what's to let people know that the empire is rebuilding itself, but they're also trying to make sure they don't make the same mistakes that they did last time. They started
Right.
off the stormtroopers with clones that they had, reprogrammed for 66, and then they brought in civilians from across the galaxy that they recruited into the academies. And it's sort of like, okay, how can we up the ante this time? We don't want just our leader to be super powered. Let's make our troopers super powered. That way, there's no small rebellion again that can put up a fight again.
There's
Yeah, I think. Oh, go ahead, Cody.
okay, I was gonna say there's something, and I don't know a whole lot about it, but called the Dark Trooper Project, which is like, I guess that's probably more Legends and stuff now, but it was essentially that kind of concept of like creating an army that was like half cybernetic, half clone, half whatever, and like just looking at some of like concept art and stuff, and I don't even know if it was probably from a book or comic or something that's Legends. They all have like a Vaderish looking mask, but it kind of reminded me a little bit of what we saw on the wall there. And so, along with what Rona was saying, like maybe they are try and build some sort of super army along that lines. But I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see kind of where they go. Then the other thing I was thinking, along with what you guys are saying, is Moff Gideon, is he the top dog like right now? Like we obviously get that vibe, but does he answer to somebody? Is there a Grand Moff? Is there, you know,
Mal, you take that.
or is
So right now, there's cells of the Empire.
right?
So basically, the top dog at the moment is Ray Sloan, and we haven't heard anything of her in this. But
Hmm.
Moff Gideon's definitely not the top dog. But I think
Okay.
he's trying to make himself the top dog, but he's not gonna get there
True, and I think
because we know him.
that's very much what we see in like Star Wars, right? I mean, that's basically how kind of Thrawn even kind of gets his gig.
Yeah.
He wasn't the top dog, and then he was just so badass that they made a special position for him. So like we could see a similar thing with Moff Gideon, where he was like, he's definitely power hungry, and he reminds me so much of Thrawn. He really does, and like the creativity and his attention to detail with his enemy. That's
Yeah.
like to me like that's just like very, I guess the very essence of Thrawn to me is like understanding your enemy very well. And that seems like just from that clip with him understanding about like, being so in depth of understanding who Cara Dune was, who Mando was, and who Grief Karga was when he showed up, I thought that was very interesting. Like he told us who they were. We didn't know until he told
Yeah,
us. So I thought
Yeah, that's
he
the
that's a
knows his
he's
stuff.
an ISB officer. That he started off as an ISB officer. It's just like no, it's not just he looks cool. His information has been his training since the early years of the Empire.
was that an ISB ship at the end? That's what I thought because it obviously wasn't a Star Destroyer, but it looked very
I thought it
like
was a
the
light
ISB.
cruiser.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
freaked out because of the opening in the middle. I'm like, they're not gonna do the Falcon. No, 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 no. They're not gonna do the Falcon. That's
That'd have been
terrible.
crazy, just like a random
Yeah,
Falcon shot. You're like, I don't understand.
Ray Sloan's from the Battlefront book, right?
So Ray Sloan is introduced in a Star Wars Rebels
Aftermath.
novel. It's called A New Dawn, and
Mm,
Yeah,
she follows through into the Aftermath novels,
yeah.
Okay, so I
which
understand
follows
Aftermath.
after the Battle of Endor all the way to the Battle of Jakku.
Yes, the aftermath books. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, I was like, I knew it from Aftermath. I didn't remember about the Rebels book. But then you
Yeah,
get,
she's introduced in A New Dawn.
and then you
Nice.
get her even in Squadrons. If you can't read, you can go check her out in Squadrons. And she's the main. I don't know, because you play on two different sides. She's the main character of the Empire, basically. Um, so she's really cool. She's the Hera of the Empire, basically. And
I
the
definitely, I definitely get the vibe that like obviously Gideon's after the child and everything for his own personal gain too, but I do get the vibe that he's on a mission for a greater cause too. Like
mm-hmm,
it does feel like it feels like he is on a mission for somebody and like he's determined obviously and all that. But that's why I was kind of asking that because it does seem like whether it's Ray Sloan or whoever he's answering to, it does seem like he's been given a
So,
task. I don't know.
mm-hmm, for sure.
so I mean, Logan, you opened the Thrawn doors, so I have to go here. I mean, I was gonna go here
Shocker.
anyways, but that was
I shouldn't have done that.
you opened those doors.
That was dumb.
Um, but basically, the entire vibe that I got from Moff Gideon in this episode, and basically what's going on with the whole cloning system, is I'm getting a very Legends Thrawn trilogy vibe.
mm,
Is within that trilogy, you have a cloning facility that no one knows about, and they're cloning people with, clearly the Force and the midi chlorians and stuff. But I mean, you have this same kind of plot line going here. Of course, we don't know the details of it, but that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting.
mm-hmm.
Is that very vague, dark cloning thing that we're going to try to take out the rest of whatever's going on. We're going to create these elite soldiers and take this out. Whereas, I mean, in the Thrawn trilogy, we'd actually get go into those dark troopers, is
Mm-hmm.
what you're talking about. But they instead of rather they made like a Luke Skywalker with two U's
Yeah, that
and
was weird.
had
But
him go after Luke. So I think it's going to be the same thing, except they're going to go after their greatest threats. And currently, we don't know Luke's whereabouts at the moment.
it's a good point. And then that okay, I don't think we'll ever go the Luke route in the show. I really don't.
No.
However, I do think it was an interesting point that they're like, it seems that the child didn't have a high enough M count. And to me, the only person alive who would have a higher M count than someone of the same species as Yoda would be Luke. Just judging from, Anakin obviously is much higher than Yoda's, and kind of
Yeah.
assuming, because we don't really know, assuming that that somehow transfers down lineage wise, that because Snoke kind of makes that sort of sentiment that because of lineage, there's definitely a connection to probably midichlorian count. So I don't think we'll ever go the Luke route, and I really hope we don't. But that's kind of an interesting concept. And I think for me, like the thing that I were talking is just like going off is just so reminiscent of what Mallory and I were talked about last week, and it was like last week's episode opened so many doors for the Mandalorian,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just for the concept of raising the child. It
Oh
like
yeah.
Ahsoka could do it. He could be trained as a Jedi. Ahsoka could totally reject it and then go into her own spin-off show. Like there were so many options just from last week's episode alone, and now this one kind of going back to to me the overall storyline of Mando. And again, there's there's no clear direction the show is going. And it's kind of fantastic that you can't be like, okay, well we're going to go here next. This is a logical progression of the story. Like I think it's really cool that after watching this episode, I'm like, I have no idea. I have so many guesses, and I
What's
can
gonna
pull from
end, right?
Legends, I can pull from current canon, and I'm just sitting there going, well, I mean, that could work. But, there's this show does such a good job of setting up endless possibilities for its future that I
Right.
think is very exciting. If we're looking for midichlorian count, well, Ahsoka's now an option, right? He's literally going to take Moff Gideon to Ahsoka.
I say, let's not forget where that ended, right? Apparently they're tracking, and he's gonna go right there, right, bring her right to Ahsoka. So
Right.
That's
obviously he's gonna know. I mean, whether she knows who Moff Gideon is or not, she's gonna know what the dark saber is. She's gonna have all this history, right?
hmm
So that's interesting.
And Moff Gideon
Ahsoka
will
Tano.
probably know
She
who
knows who
Ahsoka
Moff
is.
Gideon is.
I,
But I
probably,
wanted to
but
follow up on Logan is you were saying that he didn't have a high enough midi-chlorian count. I actually took that in a different direction. I was like these people are rejecting the midi-chlorian, they're rejecting his blood.
Hmm.
Like even more of as like a blood transfusion is you're having the wrong blood type. Does
Hmm.
that make sense?
Yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah.
like these subjects
that's
aren't the
possible.
right one. Or you might have the right what's the word I'm looking for? You have the right source, but you
hmm
have the wrong type. You have the wrong subjects. and I think that's what I took more of that
We're looking for a new
than I did.
volunteer more than a new blood source.
Hmm.
Yeah, I could see that. Well, and I took even the whole midichlorian thing. I personally didn't take it as that he didn't have enough midichlorians. He specifically said I couldn't get any more blood than what I got
Right.
without killing him, and they obviously didn't want to kill him
Hmm.
because they may need more of him, right? So, and if Moff Gideon's still after him, in their heads, I think they do think that they can get more from him now. Um,
Yeah, they're definitely not done with the
so
child.
yeah,
I definitely don't get that vibe.
right. So I don't know. But yeah, so it's I could see kind of both sides of that for sure.
What were some of your favorite sort of references that this show had? Because this episode is chock full of references, and it was so good at depicting the Empire. So good, very Empire-esque. Actually, back to back, I think. But what were some of your favorite references that you kind of caught or noticed? You want to go first, Mallory?
Oh, okay. I'm below. Sorry, I'm beside you on my screen. So
Too
Oh,
bad.
that screen's different on it, bro.
it's a little bit confusing. But yeah, so I'll go first. Um, my favorite moments are actually not direct references,
Okay.
or but I mean, like you said at the beginning, I'm gonna take this in a Fallen Order direction and then a Thrawn direction again.
Wow,
Um,
shocking. I couldn't have predicted
Shocking,
this.
I know. Ronan, if you didn't know, my favorite character in Star Wars is Thrawn.
If you haven't figured that out from like knowing
Ah,
her for 10 minutes.
Well,
okay.
I mean, yeah. So I, yeah. Okay. Anyways, but I think I'm gonna take this really away from the main plot. Was the Scout Troopers?
Hmm.
That's what they call it.
Yeah.
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 Is is in Fallen Order. I mean, they're kind of the better version of a stormtrooper, and that's really kind of the vibe I got from this. Is you really get to see just how much better they are than a normal stormtrooper, and just how capable of doing things that they are. I mean, they're still dumb, but they're more capable of a normal stormtrooper, and that's what I kind of is it. That's what I liked. Is they're building off of these things
Hmm.
rather than keeping. Oh yeah, stormtroopers are stupid, you know.
Hmm.
And then again, with the entire Imperial bases, you have that Fallen Order look. You have the bridge that goes out, and the entire time I could just see Cal like walking around the edges, just like trying to get up. And then once you get up there, you have like that big monster. Anyways, but then another one is when the scout troopers are, they jump off that bridge and they crash into each other. It's like they're going to be the architects of their own destruction. That's a Thrawn quote.
Hmm.
Is and that's exactly what's going on. Is the Empire is the architect of their own destruction here. Is they're the one that's losing the battles. I mean, you see throughout the entirety of the Empire is they are the architects of their own destruction. They are the sole reason that they lose. I mean, yes, you have the rebels who can come in and figure out those weaknesses, but it's all because of the Empire that they lose those battles. And small things like the faults in the Death Star. You have two people running into each other, which then killing people. You have Vader turning on the Empire and the Emperor, and you just see these things slowly falling. And
Hmm.
it's because the
Interesting.
Empire is the architect of their own destruction.
Hmm.
That
Cool
would make him great in
perspective.
Rebels. In Rebels, he would people would be like, "Let's attack." He's like, "No, not yet. Wait, and think about this." And I remember me as watching the show. I'm like, "What the hell are they doing? Why are they seeing that I'm not seeing?" But yeah, I love Thrawn.
Most of the time, they'll
Yeah.
mess it up themselves.
Right. It's
Telling
good.
you,
Uh,
Thrawn's a genius.
What you got, Cody?
oh man, there's a lot of references. One thing that's just on the tip of my head that I'll just say, I forgot that Mando didn't know that Gideon survived. Like
Right.
when that happened, I was like, oh yeah, because we all knew, and I was like, wait, duh, yeah, like he wouldn't know that he survived. Obviously, we do, and
Right.
also nobody else knows he has the dark saber. I kind of forgot about that too. So
You know?
anyways, that was just a thought I wanted to throw in before I forgot about it. But
It's
anyways,
crazy that like
um,
even that hologram in last episode, like he was there like 30 seconds too late or he would have seen it, right?
Yeah.
that's
Just
true.
kind of
Right.
interesting that you're right. Like he has no idea and he really shouldn't.
Yeah. Well, good continuity then by by the creators obviously, but some of my favorite references that like you said, there's a ton of New Hope references. I caught when they were shutting down or when he was trying to self-destruct the thing, the noise it
Mhm.
made was kind of the same noise that the Death Star made when Obi-Wan shuts down
Dude.
or shuts the shield or whatever
Tractor beam
magnetized
down.
thing that
Tractor beam.
tractor beam. There you go. Yeah, same noise. So that was kind of cool. Obviously,
And it
just
is
being
like he's
inside
walking
of
around
there.
the thing too.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and even just being inside that base, you could tell that was an Imperial base. It felt very cool like that. I think Moff Gideon used the binoculars that we're all familiar with from
Grief
A New
Karga.
Hope, and or sorry, yeah, Grief Karga, and let's see. Obviously, the ship at the end was very reminiscent of A New Hope, and
Mhm.
so there was a lot of
Very cool. That
a
that
lot of
was cool
cool
that they emulated
callbacks.
the shot of the Star Destroyer, in this case probably an ISB
Right.
ship or maybe a light cruiser,
Yeah.
but still that same vibe.
Yeah, one thing I
Hmm.
really liked about that facility is it really like mirrored Rogue One. Is as they're going to
Yeah,
find
like
those
most of.
plans, it really mirrored Rogue One
Oh,
in what they were
Scarif.
doing.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
whoa, like that's like I was watching, I'm like, Rogue One, Rogue One, Rogue One,
Yeah,
and I'm just like, this just looks like Rogue One to me.
so
yeah.
so much continuity, I think, with when dealing with the Empire. Like it all seems to flow together so well.
Yeah.
Did you have anything that stood out to you, Ronan, about like specific callbacks or?
To me, the minute they cut to the guys with the uniform that do have the Camino emblem of
Right.
clothing, which I was like, holy god, when they were like, burn it off. It
Yeah,
really,
that was cool.
I say it's weird to reference it, but that's how George Lucas based it off. It's the Nazis on the run. That whole sequence when we see the beings in the tubes with
Hmm.
the water, I was just like, okay, this is what I was waiting for. I was waiting for this moment that it feels like I bought a Star Wars comic book and just every page was like filled with something. And what does this mean? Is this going to be referenced later? Does this mix to those humanoid droids that the Emperor sends to all his generals or mobs at the in Battlefront 2? Like what the I that was the moment that I was just like a Joker grin. I'm like, this is weird, crazy Star Wars stuff, and I love it. I we got a little bit of it in Rise of Skywalker in the beginning, and that was it. We usually would get this either in a comic book or in an old book from the EU.
Right.
But I did like the C-3PO droid in the classroom. That's something that I
I
found
love it.
remarkable about Navarro in season one. It's very overcast. If you see the color palettes of the
Right. Right.
episodes,
Right.
it's very there's not much sun lighting, and then we go back to Navarro, and there's sun everywhere. It's prosperous. There's kids in school, and it's just like
Yeah,
That's
it's a
awesome.
unique aspect that what happens when the war has ended for a few years now, and how does schooling go? How does teachers go forth? What are they teaching in class? And I like that sequence a lot, and also that Kara's the marshal now. I'm like, okay,
that was cool.
Yeah.
Well, that really made me think of like, man, how much of a time jump are we looking at here? Because Navarro had changed so much, and even I think Cara Dune and Rikara and Grief Karga were pretty much like a lot's changed since you left, and it was just like they've set up a school. Everything's so different. I'm like,
Right.
man, how long has it? Like, do we have an official time jump? I don't know that we know the exact amount of time that's passed. I didn't think it was a lot at first, but this makes it feel like it's been longer than I thought.
right. I also like the Imperial. Someone said TK 142 1 something like that. And it reminded me of when the Imperial guy let Luke and Han in when they were dressed as stormtroopers. Like TK 120, why aren't you at your post? It reminded me a little bit of that. I'm like, is that code reference for A New
Like a
Hope?
reference,
What
it might be.
It's a
the? Yeah,
close
and
reference, but it's not an
right, and
exact. Yeah.
also I think they're called Aqualish. I think I looked it up right now. It was
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
those creatures in the beginning that the one that wanted to fight Luke in the cantina in Mos
The
Eisley.
butt
Like,
chins.
Yes,
yeah,
there are
I like yeah,
qualishes.
I like that little reference. I'm like, oh, they're cool, more classic creatures. I love it.
Yeah, no, that was cool. I mean, so TK421, the iconic stormtrooper number, the first stormtrooper number ever mentioned in A New Hope.
Yeah.
They do TK147.
Yes.
So that's what the one we get here. That's kind of cool. And I just thought actually just all of the stormtrooper dialogue was pretty interesting because you had like that same thing where they're like, "Oh, what's this?" They're like, "Oh, it's just a blown transformer." And then you have Obi-Wan when he's on his thing, and he uses the Force in I think the most childish but like simple way, which is very I don't know, such a cool part of Obi-Wan. But he uses it so simply just to make a little noise so everyone turns around so we can sneak out right on the Death Star. And they're like, "What's
Right.
that?" And he's like, "Ah, it's probably just some dissipating gas, whatever." And it's kind of like that same vibe where the stormtroopers are like, "Eh." And I think it's funny because it's super realistic. If you're at work or whatever and you hear something, you're like, "Meh, it's not my job. I don't
Yeah.
care."
Right.
Right? And it kind of cracks me up that they had that mirror. And then again, like the thing that I thought was really cool. I mean, of course, there was so much, but I thought it was really cool that one, we got to see a Sonic imploder up close. That's cool. You get to see those a lot in video games. But that was cool to actually see
Hmm.
like one like right there. I mean, we've seen thermal imploders in this, so it was cool to see that. Um, but then when Mando actually goes up the chute with his jetpack, when they're like, "Hey, use your jetpack, go get the child," is that like mimicked Luke and Leia crossing? Two
Yes.
stormtroopers come up behind him, and there's
Stormtrooper on
one
the other
across that
side.
he shoots across. And the
Yeah.
music actually kind of
Hmm.
swells in a similar fashion. It's obviously not the same, not like the big jump music, which I don't know if you can all picture that or listen to it in your head as Luke and Leia swing across, but it actually does kind of swell as he just looks back and jumps up. I just really liked that. I mean, I guess he
Right.
didn't get a kiss for luck, but still pretty cool. And I thought that was just, to me, I think they were just
Comic
so
picture.
simple callbacks in this episode that it was really cool. Okay, we have TK147. It's not TK421. That would be weird if it was the same one. But it's still cool that it's a
Still a
similar
callback.
reference. So, and a similar callback there. We're not shutting down a tractor beam, but it's the same console that clearly the Empire is going to use the same consoles, right? They
Right.
didn't just make different ones. That'd have been really weird. So I thought there was too many neat callbacks in here. Trying to think if there's anything else.
The
Yeah, I'm
Tie
sure we
Fighter
missed a
chase.
ton.
What?
That was cool.
Hmm.
The Tie Fighter chase with the land the Scout Troopers. That gave me a little bit of asteroid field vibes when the Falcon is trying to escape
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
the Tie Fighters. I'm like, I like this narrow again.
And even a trench run vibe too,
Yes.
like Death Star Trench.
Right. And it's simple, basic action that isn't bombarded. There's not that many cuts.
Right.
It's just following the thing, and I'm like, oh, this is... even the dogfight at the end when the Racer Crest comes in.
That
Oh,
was
that was
I
epic.
so
thought,
quick. Cool. Like deploying the flails or the foils or whatever so he could slow down. It's like
right,
that was super cool because it seemed like super practical on why that would work. There's
yeah,
also like it was like the deploy all flaps and drag fins. Like they looked exactly like
Yeah.
some of the fins that you see in episode 3 as Anakin
Revenge
just
of the Sith.
murders a ship into the ground. 'Cause he's such a good
I
pilot.
I thought of too when that during that trench run. I thought of there's a part in I think it's the Force Awakens when Finn tells Rey to fly low because it confuses the Tie Fighter trackers.
yeah,
Hmm.
So I thought of that too. I was like, 'cause at first I was kind of like, man, they should be able to just lock on and kill him. But I was like, oh, you know,
That's good. That's
we
a good
know
point.
that
Yeah.
supposedly
That's a
it,
good
you
observation.
know, it
Right. They don't track down very well. They track more across.
yeah.
right. And then uh, oh, damn, what was I gonna say? Well, it was cool to see the troop transport, right, being
Hmm.
used again, and obviously,
That's cool
Filoni
that
and
they keep
Favreau were
throwing.
just geeking out. Yeah, just being able to put that in, but to see it like used like that when Carden just launches it off the thing like that, that was fun. That was cool.
I love that
What?
a toy that was never in a film keeps
Yeah,
getting referenced. Filoni's like, "Ha! I'm gonna do it
Because
again.
they're just
Do it in
playing with the action
Rebels.
figures. That's
Watch
what they
this. I'm gonna
said,
do it in
right? So
live
it's like,
action.
right.
Watch this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna drive it off a cliff."
yeah,
What's
crush the poor Mythrol's speeder.
What's weird is that I don't know about you guys, but once I finished watching and I was writing my notes, I'm like, okay, I've seen him do the jetpack and the shot where he takes off.
Hmm.
What left of footage have we not seen yet in the trailers? And I'm not trying to spoil
Yeah,
myself, but it's just like we still have 4 more episodes to go.
I can't think of
I haven't
like
seen
and
the
there's
pretty
not a
much a
lot of
single
other shots
scene.
left.
right.
That's a
Like it
good
looks like
point.
almost everything else has already been used, and it's just like, what are they hiding from us that hasn't been leaked yet?
Because like that was like what I was thinking when I saw us actually get in that transport. Actually, okay, actually when they showed the transport, I was like, well, crap, that's gonna be like all of the shots. Well, like we're
Yeah,
done with
Yeah,
the trailer now.
yeah,
Once they get in that, because like they had the mithril, and you're like, okay, well, clearly that's from this episode. As soon as you saw that, so that was kind of crazy to be like, we had the ice scene, we had the water scene, like we're done. I think so. Like it's definitely going to be interesting to see if we're going to see more. I just don't think there's anything left in the trailer. But I did think on the
yeah.
trench one it was really cool. It was like escape from the Death Star vibe with Grief Karga shouts back after he shoots one. And I just thought that was really cool. You kind of hear Solo being like, "Great kid, don't get cocky now."
Don't get cocky.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
thought that
that
was kind
whole
of cool.
thing, the inside of the troop transport was Falcon-esque because even the controls, they
Hmm.
kind of looked like the Falcon.
Just
And
kind of
then
swiveling
yeah,
in
and
his
then
chair and stuff.
Yeah.
well yeah, so the gunner obviously was super Falcon-esque, and then even like the controls for flying the ship, they looked like the Falcon hyperdrive, like a little bit. It
Right.
was
Right.
close, and so that was really cool. But yeah, obviously the gunner was like super like the Falcon,
I
and
always like when you
and
see a shot of the TIE fighters and the TIE pilots are always kind of, I don't know what knob they're twisting, but they're always, okay, gotta twist this knob.
that's true.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how they
All I
lock
know is
on. I don't
people
know.
need to freaking start getting keys or something, because the only ship I've seen anyone work to steal is in freaking The Rise of Skywalker when they steal the speeder. But you can go steal like these transport ships, you can just jack
Just
a
steal
whole ship.
anyone's ship.
You're just like, it's fine. No problem.
It's
Just
easy.
jump in and go.
Yeah. We're not worried about security.
Logan, you made a comment when we were watching it, like when we first saw the TIE fighter, like, hey, that kind of looks like the TIE Defender. I mean, we clearly saw it wasn't, but I just wanted to
Hmm.
make the point that a TIE Defender very well could be
Hmm.
in the Mandalorian because the last TIE Defender goes down in the Battle of Jakku. So it is very possible that we could see a TIE Defender in this, and I can actually see them using that later in,
Cool.
like, it's minimal, like it's not
Hmm.
probable,
Yeah,
but I can see them using it as we start to hit the climax
right.
of season two.
I did think it was cool. I mean, just uh, I always will think TIE Defender when I see the folded wings, just because that's what I first think of, even though it's not necessarily characteristic of it. And we did see
See, when
obviously
I
Moff
think of
Gideon flies down in one, like that was very.
Yeah.
yeah,
But I
see when
thought it
I
was
think of the
just.
folded wings, I think
Mm,
of the Inquisitor at
okay,
first.
that's fair.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's a good callback. The Inquisitor's TIE fighter.
Oh, the lore of this is we've only gotten this much. That's what's freaking me out about this show. What else are they pulling that we don't know yet? I'm trying to go back
That's
through those
awesome.
Ewok movies or another comic book. I'm like, what else have they not
Ewok movie.
brought up? They
Yeah, and
brought
I
the
think
blurs.
Yeah.
I think Ronan pulled out a good example. Like this is very for people who aren't familiar with the EU. This is very EU. Um,
Yes.
Luckily, it's a lot more on the rails than how a lot of those books start. We're
I
doing
was
good
yeah.
so far. We haven't completely went off the rails like Luke with two U's or
Yeah.
whatever,
No.
because that stuff got weird. But
Yes.
Weird.
but it's very similar in that vibe. And I think the one thing that those books really did give, besides great humor, but um, they really gave such a good vibe of the Empire being an evil thing that you just couldn't quite hang with. That the Empire always seemed to be one step ahead. Oh, you screwed this up. Oh, you blew up our Death Star. Oh no, dude. Okay, we're gonna build one in 3 years. That's not even an issue. Oh no, you killed our Emperor. Okay, that's fine. We have plans for this. You think you won the war? No, you didn't. You're a joke. Like, and it's. I think the EU was always really good at setting that up. That the Empire was always going to be the bad guy.
One
You just
step
always
ahead. Yeah.
you could think you'd win, but the Empire was never really going to be beaten. Just a testament to how manipulative and powerful Palpatine was. And I just think that's kind of a cool vibe to still have. I think as long
Right.
as you're facing off against the Empire, it just has such a cool vibe.
Yeah.
But I guess I don't know. Where do you think this is going to end? Just like trying to guess like what's this dude's fate or like
Oh,
like what's our ending? Because I was talking to actually my uncle. He just caught up. He's like yesterday. He's like, all right, I finally got the Mandalorian down. I finally watched it all. This is Jaren actually, by the way. And I'm like, he's like, I just finished. And he's like, well, how much is left? I'm loving it. Like how many seasons are left? Like, well, they're working on season 3. It's already renewed for season 3. But like he's like, well, is there gonna be a season 4? And I'm like, I have no idea. Like with this, I'm just like, what are we going to be on season 10 when this ends, or like, is it season 3? And
I
what
I
where's it going?
go ahead, Mallory.
okay, cool. I think this season's gonna end with getting the dark saber back. I think that's
Ooh,
how it's
fun.
gonna end, and and season three it's gonna go in to basically another siege of Mandalore.
Yes.
Ooh,
I
Please.
think that's
Mandalore
the
back.
direction this is going.
Yes.
Siege
That's
of
cool.
Mandalore.
Part two.
Okay, Siege of Mandalore Part 2.
Part two. This time the Mandos win. And
Right.
the idea, the thought that I had is that that's really cool. Is okay. You have, um, and obviously we don't know how many sects of children of the Watch, the Death Watch, are out there. But the idea would to really take back Mandalore, Mandalorians are stronger together, would be Katie Sackhoff, Bo-Katan, sorry, uh, is kind of the leader of, going to be the rightful leader of Mandalore. Her being able to bring in Mando, who is a
Hmm.
child of the Watch, and bring them back together so that they're no longer a separated sects of Mandalore. There's not going to be the Death Watch and the Mandalorians. They're going to all come together and be one again. And Mando can play a big part in leading the children of the Watch into that for them to go in and then take Mandalore back. So I think that's the kind of the bridge, and that they're going to be able to, I don't know, bring Mandalorians back together into one big tribe again.
So the Mandalorian ends with the restoration of Mandalore.
I think so.
That would be an
Yeah.
interesting and appropriate ending, I think,
Yes. I just hope, and maybe I might be wrong. I might change of heart, but I don't want 8 seasons of Mandalorian. That sounds weird right now
Yeah,
because it's good, but it's amazing what you could do when it's minimized
Hmm.
and everything is strong
focus.
and
Hmm.
focused, and the least rewatched episode is cool or is fine.
Hmm.
That's what I liked about Rebels. That it was only 4 seasons. Granted, there was there was one-off episodes I don't
Mallory's just so
recall.
happy someone likes Rebels.
Hey, a lot
Oh,
of people love
wait.
Rebels, okay?
I have all the Blu-rays. I'm with you. But yeah, that's what keep it. You know, I would say max make it 4 seasons as well, Mando. Make it 4 seasons, and if you want to do
Yeah,
more stories, do what do it
Books.
do what Lone Wolf and Cub did. It started off as a manga, and they made 4 movies out of it. It's just like there's more. I'm a big believer of cross mediums. I told myself if they didn't do season two
Hmm.
and they just did like a manga series of the Mandalorian, I would have bought it easily. I would have bought it easily. We're getting books of Mandalorian.
Right.
I think that it's keep it small, and I would even suggest have the child and Mando separated for a little bit. It'll be sad. People will be like, "Oh
so
my
sad.
gosh, I could and whatnot," but it'd be like, okay, he proves to both the child of the Watch and Bo-Katan and the Night Owls and her loyalists and all the houses that he is of the believer of Mandalorian, but you can't ignore the fact that he's been really attached to this kid. He's talking to him. He's suggesting stuff. He cleaned his mouth with his cape
Oh,
when
that
he
was
Oh
adorable.
man,
vomited.
That was
That's
adorable.
there's a connection there. It's not just a
that
thing that
alone.
I've been rewatching Sanctuary a lot.
Hmm.
I love that episode because there's some lines where it's like he was about to leave the kid with Omera, or I think that's her name,
Yeah,
and
that
be
sounds
like,
about right.
traveling with me is no life for a kid. I did my job. He's safe.
Right.
I think at one point that's that they get separated. He does the good cause for Mandalorians. He reunites with the kid, and he goes back and he settles down with Omera, and they start a family. And I don't want to see his. I don't want to. I love Pedro, but I don't want to see his face again. And just be the ending shot. It just he takes the helmet off. The end.
That'd be cool.
That'd be pretty cool.
Last Samurai style, in my opinion.
That'd be interesting. I think it's funny that Mallory was like, it's going to end on Mandalore, and everyone's like, yes, Mandalore. I agree with Mallory. Mallory's a genius.
Mallory
And I,
is wise.
I do think
He's rubbing off on me.
my counterpoint would be that I actually am going to hazard a guess that Bo-Katan dies.
Oh
Don't make me sad.
I'm sorry,
no.
but this is one of the reasons I think she has to die. Because that I do think there's so much bad blood from people who know what's up in Mandalore. People who actually understand Mandalorian history.
Hmm.
I think there's too much bad blood. You know, Bo-Katan hates Death Watch, right?
Right.
There's no I mean, they're pretty much responsible for her sister's death because they sided with Maul.
And she was
They're
part
at
of it.
least responsible for the destruction of her planet at least one of the times,
Right.
and then obviously the imperial occupation, and then who knows what role the Death Watch potentially played with what Mallory and I spent most of last week's episode talking about was this purge that we have no idea what it is, right? So we have no idea how bad this goes, and we can assume that everyone in the Death Watch still hates everyone who was too passive for them, right? and
And
kind of has that. So I think Mando has this unique possibility where he can be like, I'm respected in my clan, because he does seem to be respected. You know, when he was in danger and made a choice that technically even put his covert at in danger, they still came to his aid, even though it was bad for them overall. They still chose to help him and they respected him. And then he was, I don't know, I think I get the vibe that he's respected in with the Mandalorians he meet. So I think this can end with Bo-Katan dying and kind of passing on this the role of the Mandalore to
She could choose him as her successor,
choose him as a
passing,
successor, which
like,
would then
hand him the dark
garner
saber.
the Death Watch's ability to maybe chill the hell out, and
Yeah,
everyone else can respect him because he wasn't. I mean, it's very cultish how he's raised in the Death Watch, right? So he doesn't know he's part of something bad. He doesn't know there's all this bad
right.
blood because he doesn't know any better. There are people who saved him, so he can kind of use his middle ground ability to maybe end it, and we can have
I
him
like
in
it.
this. I hope he just gets armor. That's basically how I hope this
So
ends.
one thing I do want to mention is I'm not entirely sold that the Children of the Watch are is Death Watch. Like I know that's weird because they're literally the Children of the Watch and you have the Clan
Death Watch.
Vizsla, right?
Yeah,
But
there's
if
no
you
way they'd have made
actually
the name that close.
no, but just hear me out for a second. Is if you actually go into the Mandalorian history when the warrior when the when the Mandalorians who wanted to maintain a warrior lifestyle were
Hmm.
banished to Concordia, there was actually two groups. There was Death Watch, and then there was a sect called the Old Mandalorians,
Hmm.
who basically went back to the old mercenary bounty hunter life of the Mandalorians, and they went by everything that the old Mandalore did because that's what they believed. So where Death Watch took it one step further with violence, they went back like, okay, we're not seeking revenge, but we're gonna go create our own life as the old Mandalorians. But
Interesting.
then at one point they were a part of Death Watch, and a lot of these members are Clan Vizsla, and we need to understand that Death Watch isn't just like the Death Watch insignia isn't just Death Watch. That's Clan Vizsla as well.
yes, that's what's great about.
Yeah,
even you think Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan was in Death Watch. If you think about it, she was,
guess that's where she started
yes, previously was like she was her right hand, and it wasn't
until
until
Maul took over, right?
he killed her,
Mm-hmm.
and then everyone bowed to him, and she was like, "No, I'm bouncing. I'm not gonna kneel for this guy."
Right.
And the that's I okay. If you think Bo is gonna die, I don't want that. But I think they shouldn't do it in the first season if they bring her back.
No,
If
no,
they
no.
do
It's
it
definitely
that,
this is. I'm talking like last,
Season,
second to
yes,
last episode overall, probably like season
yes, and
four or five.
that's
Like
something
a
that
Ricky Kanan kind of deal.
Yeah, very, very similar to Kanan. I mean, it
that's what
has to be a sacrificial role. Like it has to be done super tastefully. But and as Mallory brings up a great point, is like we don't really understand what Death Watch is and Child of the Watch is, and I think we just don't understand Mandalore in general. And I'm loving the tidbits we keep getting because there's so many different options for what it is. You know, I mean, I think so much of kind of the KOTOR period in the Mandalorian Wars. That's where I go to for like Mandalorian history, is like that time period.
right.
And you know, it's so similar to what you see with Death Watch, and Death Watch is really just emulating them. And as Mallory pointed out, that was actually people who actually just wanted to follow that. We get that after the Mandalorian Wars and stuff. And I wouldn't be surprised. I guess I don't think Death Watch is. I think Death Watch in the Clone Wars is the bad guys. I think Death Watch in Rebels is the bad guys who are just kind of there, not necessarily where like they're not the aggressors anymore. But
Yeah,
and I think in this one they're not necessarily the bad guys. They're just the other guys at this
points of
point.
views. Point of
Well,
views. They never said that
hold
Children of
on.
Watch were bad. They just said they
Right.
were zealots that broke off.
Very cool. Right. So
We don't necessarily see Death Watch in Rebels because
true,
we
but
see
I was kind of counting
the Imperials.
Gar
Yeah,
Saxon as similar,
But
just
he's
he's
because
the
a
he was
protector.
protector.
basically the leader of Death Watch
So,
under Maul's.
but at that point, it wasn't exactly Death Watch anymore. They were called Super Commandos.
True.
They weren't exactly Death Watch anymore. So Gar Saxon, he's an Imperial. He's the worst Mandalorian to serve the Empire. So it wasn't exactly that because you see Clan Vizsla sides of the Bo-Katan at, at the end of that arc saying, we will
Hmm.
follow you. So it's not necessary, and the majority of Death Watch was Clan Vizsla.
Yeah.
Majority of
So
rebels we see it's Gar Saxon and his Imperial Mandalorians.
Hmm.
We see Fen Rao and the Protectors, and I
I
believe
totally forgot
the
about
two
Fenrir.
episode arc of Heroes of Mandalore is Clan Ren, Sabine's
so
mom's
it's
clan.
it's Ren, Protectors, and Saxon. That's
Right,
the
right,
entire essence of the Mandalore arcs in Rebels. Is it's Sabine Wren finding the dark saber, training with the dark saber, taking it to her mom, being like, "Hey, this is what I have. I don't know what to do with it." And then Bo-Katan comes along. She's like, "You're the perfect person for this." And then working with Bo-Katan to ultimately start another Mandalorian civil war
right.
to get
Right.
the Empire out of there, which eventually happens for a little bit. But
But yeah, ultimately, there's a big purge that happens at some point that, yeah, could leave millions of things up for interpretation that hopefully we'll find
Right.
out more about. Yeah, yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. There's no way to really exactly know what's going on right now at
So
this point.
basically, it's a great episode, and it leaves you maybe more confused than when you started out with, which
But
seems to
pumped.
be a pattern actually. But I'm
You're not
just
wrong.
loving the direction the Empire is going. I'm loving how we're portraying the Empire so much, especially in these last two episodes.
So
Fantastically
Ahsoka
done.
next episode.
Ahsoka's coming up next episode. Filoni's obviously at the helm. A shocker
Yeah,
So
that
excited.
worked out. It'll be exciting, and that gives us 4 more episodes midway through the season. We're at the halfway point,
halfway point. Wow, that's sad.
but it'll definitely be really cool, and we'll keep doing this every week as we try and figure out and interpret the Mandalorian. Um, so stay tuned for next week's episode and come and hang out. So bye everybody. But
Thank you
thanks for
guys.
hanging out
May the
Thank you.
force be
everybody.
with you.
May the force be with you. This is the way.
This is the
may
way.
the Warriors fortune be with you.
Wow. Show off.
Uh,